what was the most impressive thing or disappointing thing that you saw in this matchup with Cincinnati?
I love the way Alabama ran the football. I think just knowing Coach O'Brien and some of his thought processes, I know that they had success running the football throughout the year, but I think to do it to the level that they did last night, I don't know if they've done that all year. And that's something that I think is going to be really big for Bryce heading into this game next week, because it is tough to beat an opponent twice in the same year. And to put it all on Bryce's shoulders, kind of how he shouldered it in the SEC championship game, is going to be tough. So for him, I think it was a huge confidence boost going into this game. Tough opponent, team that got back on track defensively in Georgia, to hopefully be able to establish the run game like that again and work off that and give him some opportunities. So I think that that's one of the things that really impressed me. I mean, I kind of expected Alabama to come out and do it, but I will say this. I think Cincinnati kept it close longer than I thought they were. But ultimately, the best team won, in my opinion.
Bryce, you've been with It's a We Thing Cincinnati all year. You were the first one to come out with that 50-foot banner. What was the breaking point for them? Because Hack's right. It was 10-3 with some change left in the first half. They already went toe-to-toe with the monster, mouthpiece still in. Like, where did it start to get away from him? And what happened with Ritter?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it should have been 10-7. You know, they went right down the field on the first drive, and Alex Pierce pieced that dude up on the outside and had a touchdown. I just think, you know, defensively, you could tell what from a strategy and a point of emphasis was for that defensive unit to look, if you don't get to Ritter, get your hands up. They had 6 or 7 batted balls down, and yep. For us, especially talking on this podcast, all being accused, man, that's just momentum killers. I mean, when you can hit a 5-yard out because it gets batted down, or a stick route, or you know, like I said, a big touchdown play.
From how tall is Ritter? 6'3", 6'4", right?
Yeah.
He's got to be that, right?
Yeah.
At 6'3" or 4 in the ball, it sits here coming out of his hand. 6 bat down. It might have been even more than that. Half of them probably lateral. You what?
And that was the thing. Yeah, I mean, it probably was more than 6. So that's just tough, man. It's tough to get momentum going. They really never got Jerome Ford going, which is kind of what, you know, Trevor and I were talking about too, even in our podcast, he has to get going. The run game has to get going. And he had a few, you know, in the second half pop-offs, but you know, overall, you know, to Hack's point, I think they just played really well, and it just really stifled Cincinnati from getting anything going, to where you're behind on first down, you're behind on second down. It's just hard to get that defense to make plays on third and long.
Trevor, that they had struggles with third and long, struggles in the red zone, and struggles trying to stop the run. 2-part question, just the same as the other two. Most impressive or disappointing part of that game, and is this a signal in an indirect way to the rest of the group of 5? Your very best representative over the last 5 or 10 years came up against one of the 5 families, and it that's how it played out. Yes, competitive in the first half. Over the duration of the game, it just looked like, you know, a kind of a predictable type of outcome.
Yeah, you know, George, I think what we saw is no different than any other takeaway from what Cincinnati did. Cincinnati came in, they were competitive. They weren't competitive enough, but from the get-go, you saw a team in Alabama that, to Hack's point, they ran the ball 10 straight times and then had a little pass to score on their first touchdown. They established their dominance from the very first snap.
I agree with Trevor. They established the dominance on their very first snap. Go ahead, Trevor. I got you. Just finishing your line for you.
Yeah, they it's from the very first, kept it going, and over 200 yards, 8 yards a carry. I mean, just big boy football versus little ball. But you look at the history of these semifinal games, and, you know, this is the margin of victory over the winning team. So You can't necessarily take everything away from Cincinnati. You just got to give a lot more props to Alabama for coming out and asserting their dominance.
It really is true. Like, we talk about the five families, and we played a bunch. I always play a bunch and call it Alabama the Roman army, because they have very few vulnerabilities. And just in wartime, historically, the Roman armies had some of the best generals in history. They don't make mistakes. They don't hurt themselves. And they're always like just charging and mowing down the opponents. It's the same with this in-game adjustments, singular effort by players. Hack, you were talking about those guys up front. Look at the edge rushers with the ends. Like they never got sealed in. Cincinnati never really had a go-to, and it was just constantly go to the bag, go to the bag, go to the bag for the Bearcats. And I can't even imagine what that must have been like, trying to call plays and trying to establish a rhythm, getting out of third down, trying to figure out how you're going to stay on the field a little bit to get the pressure off your defense. Like, that was